The champagne bubbles tickled my nose as I watched my brother Alex dance with his new bride, Rebecca. The country club ballroom was decorated in soft pastels, string lights casting a warm glow over the celebration. I should have been happy. My little brother had finally found someone who made him smile the way he used to before everything went wrong with his ex. But something felt off. I'd noticed it during the ceremony when Alex kept checking his phone, even at the altar. Rebecca hadn't seemed to notice, lost in her own joy, but I caught the quick glances, the way his jaw tightened when he read whatever message had come through. Beautiful wedding, isn't it? I turned to find Rebecca's sister, Melissa, approaching with 2 glasses of wine. She was older than Rebecca by about 5 years, with the same blonde hair but sharper features. There was something in her expression that made my stomach clench. Yeah, Rebecca looks radiant, I replied, accepting the wine. Alex seems happy too. Melissa's smile didn't reach her eyes. She glanced around the reception, making sure we weren't being overheard. The band was playing something upbeat, and most of the guests were either dancing or clustered around the bar near the far wall. Can I ask you something? She said, her voice dropping to almost a whisper. How well do you know your brother? The question caught me off guard. He's my brother. I've known him my whole life. Why? She hesitated, swirling the wine in her glass. It's probably nothing. Rebecca's been so happy planning this wedding, and I don't want to ruin anything for her, but what? Melissa looked directly at me then, her blue eyes serious. I saw him last week at Riverside Cafe downtown. He was with a woman brunette, about our age. They were sitting in a corner booth, and it didn't look like a business meeting. My heart started racing. Alex had told me he was meeting with a client that day he worked in real estate, so it wasn't unusual for him to have meetings at cafes. But something about Melissa's tone suggested this was different. Maybe it was work-related, I offered weakly. Maybe, she said, but her expression remained troubled. The thing is, I recognized her. It was Victoria. The name hit me like a punch to the gut. Victoria Martinez, Alex's ex-girlfriend of 3 years. The relationship had ended badly about 8 months ago, right around the time he'd started getting serious with Rebecca. He told me it was over, that Victoria had cheated on him and he was done with her for good. That's impossible, I said, though my voice lacked conviction. They broke up. Alex said she cheated on him. Melissa shook her head slowly. I don't think that's the whole truth. Rebecca mentioned once that Alex seemed to know a lot about what Victoria was up to, too much for someone who supposedly had no contact with her. I felt the floor shift beneath my feet. Around us, the wedding celebration continued in full swing. Alex was now talking to some college friends near the cake table, his arm around Rebecca's waist. She was glowing, completely unaware that her new sister-in-law and brother-in-law were discussing the possibility that her husband was still connected to his ex. Why are you telling me this? I asked. Because Rebecca deserves better, Melissa said simply. And because I think you care about both of them enough to find out the truth. I could be wrong, God. I hope I'm wrong, but if I'm right. She didn't need to finish the sentence. If she was right, my brother had just married Rebecca while still involved with Victoria. The thought made me sick. What do you want me to do? Talk to him, she said. You're his sister. If anyone can get the truth out of him, it's you. Before I could respond, Rebecca appeared at my elbow, radiant in her wedding dress. What are you two conspiring about over here? She asked with a laugh. Just getting to know my new sister-in-law, Melissa said smoothly, but I caught the meaningful look she gave me over Rebecca's head. Well, come dance with us. Rebecca grabbed both our hands. It's my wedding day, and I want everyone I love celebrating together. As she pulled us toward the dance floor, I caught sight of Alex by the windows. He was holding his phone again, thumb hovering over the screen. In the soft light of the country club, his expression looked guilty. Melissa's words echoed in my head. He's still seeing her. I had to find out if it was true. Rebecca deserved that much, even if the answer destroyed everything. The next morning, I sat in my apartment in Brooklyn, nursing my 3rd cup of coffee and staring at my phone. The wedding had ended late, and I'd barely slept. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Alex's face when he thought no one was watching the guilt, the way he kept checking his messages. Melissa had given me her number before leaving the reception. I'd promised to call her once I talked to Alex, but first, I needed to do some investigating on my own. I started with social media. Victoria's Instagram was set to private, but her Twitter was public. Nothing obvious, they're just retweets about environmental policy and photos of her morning runs through Prospect Park. But then I noticed something. 3 days ago, she tweeted a photo of coffee and pastries from Riverside Cafe with the caption, "Perfect Tuesday morning." The same cafe where Melissa had seen them together. On a Tuesday, the exact day Alex had told me about his client meeting. My phone buzzed. A text from Alex. "Thanks for being there yesterday. Means everything to have family support. Rebecca and I are heading to the Catskills for a few days. Talk soon." The Catskills. Their mini-moon before the real honeymoon to Italy next month. I tried to push down the anxiety rising in my chest. Maybe I was overreacting. Maybe Melissa had been mistaken. But I couldn't let it go. I decided to visit Mom. She lived in Queens, about an hour by subway, and had always been good at reading Alex. If anyone would know if he was acting strangely, it would be her. The apartment smelled like her usual Sunday sauce, even though it was Monday. Mom was in the kitchen, still wearing her church clothes from earlier. "Sophie." She hugged me tightly. "How are you feeling after yesterday? Such a beautiful wedding. Rebecca is perfect for Alex." "Yeah, about that." I sat down at the kitchen table where I'd done homework as a kid. "Mom, has Alex seemed different to you lately? Like, in the months before the wedding?" She paused in stirring the sauce, her wooden spoon hovering over the pot. "Different how?" "I don't know. Distracted? Secretive?" Mom turned to face me, her expression growing concerned. "Why are you asking? Did something happen at the wedding?" I told her about Melissa's observation, about seeing Alex with Victoria. Mom listened without interrupting, her face growing more troubled with each detail. "I knew something was off," she said finally, sinking into the chair across from me. "He's been getting phone calls at odd hours, stepping out of the room to answer them. And last month, when I asked him to help me move that bookshelf, he said he couldn't because he had to handle something with Victoria." "What kind of something?" "He said she still had some of his things, and they needed to meet to exchange belongings." "But Sophie, that was 8 months after they broke up. What belongings could possibly take 8 months to return?" My heart sank. "Did you ask him about it?" "I tried, but you know your brother. He gets defensive when he feels cornered." Mom reached across the table and squeezed my hand. I hoped I was imagining things. I wanted to believe he was happy with Rebecca. "Maybe he is happy with Rebecca," I said, though I didn't believe it myself. "Maybe the Victoria thing is just unfinished business." Mom gave me a look that suggested she wasn't buying it any more than I was. "Sophie, I raised you both. I know when Alex is lying. He gets this little crease between his eyebrows, and he can't look you directly in the eye." She sighed heavily. "He's been doing both those things whenever Rebecca's name comes up." I felt sick. My little brother, the same kid who used to cry when he accidentally stepped on ants, had potentially just committed to a life with one woman while secretly seeing another. "What do I do, Mom?" "You find out the truth," she said firmly. "And then you figure out how to minimize the damage to everyone involved." That evening, I called Melissa. She answered on the first ring. "Did you talk to him?" she asked immediately. "He's away for a few days with Rebecca. But I talked to my mom, and she's noticed things too." "Melissa, I think you might be right." There was a long pause. "Rebecca's been so happy. She keeps talking about their future together, about the house they want to buy, about kids." "I know." I closed my eyes. "Look, we need proof before we do anything. Suspicions aren't enough to destroy a marriage." "What kind of proof?" "I don't know yet, but Alex will be back Thursday. I'm going to suggest we grab lunch, just the two of us. Maybe I can get him to open up. And if he doesn't..." I stared out my apartment window at the city lights. Somewhere out there, Victoria Martinez was going about her life, possibly unaware that the man she was seeing had just married someone else. Somewhere else, Rebecca was probably curled up next to my brother, planning their future together. "Then we'll have to get creative," I said. "Sophie." Melissa's voice was soft. "Thank you for taking this seriously. I know it can't be easy, suspecting your own brother." She was right. It wasn't easy. But as I hung up the phone, I knew I couldn't ignore what we discovered. Rebecca deserved to know the truth about the man she just promised to love, honor, and cherish, even if that truth destroyed everything. Thursday afternoon found me sitting in Central Perk Cafe on the Upper West Side, nervously checking my phone every few minutes. Alex had agreed to meet me for lunch, claiming he wanted to catch up after the wedding craziness. He didn't know that I'd spent the last 3 days planning how to approach him about Victoria. The cafe was busy with the usual mix of remote workers and tourists. I'd chosen a table in the back corner where we could talk privately. My hands were shaking slightly as I sipped my latte, whether from caffeine or nerves, I couldn't tell. Alex walked in 15 minutes late, looking tired but relaxed. His hair was still messy from his few days away, and he had a slight tan from being outdoors. He hugged me before sitting down. "Sorry I'm late. Traffic from the Catskills was brutal." He flagged down the waitress and ordered coffee and a sandwich. "How have you been? You seemed a little distracted at the wedding." Here was my opening. "Actually, that's kind of what I wanted to talk about. Alex, is everything okay with you?" His expression shifted slightly. There was the crease between his eyebrows Mom had mentioned. "What do you mean? You seemed, I don't know, tense during the ceremony. And you kept checking your phone. It was my wedding day, Sophie. I was nervous. And I had a few work things that couldn't wait." He was avoiding eye contact now, focusing on stirring sugar into his coffee. "Work things." I kept my voice casual. "Mom mentioned you had to meet with Victoria last month about getting some belongings back. That seems like it would be stressful." Alex went completely still. The coffee cup froze halfway to his lips, and for a moment, the only sound was the buzz of conversation around us. "Mom told you about that? She was worried about you. We all have been." I leaned forward. "Alex, what's really going on?" He set down his cup and ran his hands through his hair. For a long moment, he didn't speak. When he finally looked at me, his eyes were filled with something I'd never seen there before: shame. "It's complicated," he said quietly. "Try me." He glanced around the cafe, making sure no one was listening. "Victoria and we didn't break up the way I told everyone." My stomach dropped. "What do you mean?" "I mean she didn't cheat on me. We broke up because—" He paused, struggling with the words. "Because I was scared. We'd been talking about marriage, about moving in together, and I panicked. I told her I needed space." "So you lied about the cheating?" "I couldn't tell people that I'd thrown away a 3-year relationship because I got cold feet. It was easier to let everyone think she was the villain. This was bad, but not as bad as what I'd been imagining. Maybe the meetings with Victoria were just him trying to apologize, to make amends before starting fresh with Rebecca." "Okay," I said carefully. "But that was 8 months ago. Why are you still in contact with her?" Alex's face crumpled. "Because I never stopped loving her." The words hung in the air between us like a bomb that had just detonated. Around us, the cafe continued its normal rhythm, but I felt like the world had suddenly gone silent. "Alex!" My voice was barely a whisper. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying I made the biggest mistake of my life." His hands were shaking now. "Victoria was everything I wanted, but I got scared because she was everything I wanted. Do you understand? The thought of being that happy, of having that much to lose, terrified me." "So you married Rebecca instead?" "No." He said it too loudly, then lowered his voice when people glanced our way. "No, it's not like that. I do care about Rebecca. She's wonderful and kind and safe." I finished for him. He flinched. "That's not fair, isn't it?" "Alex, you married a woman you care about while you're still in love with someone else. How is that fair to anyone? I thought I could get over Victoria. I thought if I committed to Rebecca, if I built a life with her, the feelings would fade." He laughed bitterly. "But they didn't. If anything, they got stronger. Are you still seeing Victoria?" The question hung between us. Alex stared down at his untouched sandwich, and I could see him weighing his options: lie to me or admit the truth that would change everything. "We've been meeting," he said finally. Not romantically. Just talking. She's been trying to understand why I threw away what we had. And I've been trying to convince myself that marrying Rebecca was the right choice." I felt like I was going to be sick. "Alex, you got married 5 days ago. Rebecca thinks you're building a life together." "I know." His voice broke. "I know, and I hate myself for it. But Sophie, I don't know how to stop loving Victoria. I don't know how to want the life I chose instead of the one I threw away." I stared at my brother, really looked at him. The guilt in his eyes, the the way his shoulders curved inward like he was trying to protect himself from his own choices. This wasn't about deception or betrayal, not really. This was about fear and the terrible things it could make people do. "You have to tell Rebecca," I said. "I can't. It would destroy her. And what's the alternative? Living a lie. Continuing to see Victoria while pretending to be a devoted husband. I don't know." He put his head in his hands. "I don't know what to do." I thought about Rebecca's glowing face at the wedding, about the way she talked about their future together. I thought about Melissa's concern, about Mom's suspicions. Most of all, I thought about Victoria, who probably had no idea that the man she was still in love with had just married someone else. "Alex," I said gently, "this isn't sustainable. Someone's going to get hurt, probably everyone. The longer you wait, the worse it's going to be." He looked up at me, and for a moment, he looked exactly like the scared little boy I remembered from our childhood. "What would you do?" he asked. I took a deep breath. I'd tell the truth. To everyone. And then I'd figure out how to make it right. As we sat in that crowded cafe, I realized this was only the beginning. The real crisis was yet to come. 2 weeks after my conversation with Alex, I was sitting in my apartment when my phone rang. Rebecca's name flashed on the screen, and my heart immediately started racing. Alex hadn't told her, yet I'd been checking in with him daily, watching him wrestle with guilt and indecision. "Sophie!" Rebecca's voice was strange, strained in a way I'd never heard before. "Hey, Rebecca. How are you? Can you come over? I need to talk to someone, and I don't know who else to call." She was at the apartment she and Alex shared in Park Slope, a charming one-bedroom they'd moved into together 2 months before the wedding. When I arrived, she answered the door in pajamas, even though it was 3 in the afternoon. Her eyes were red and swollen. "What happened?" I asked, though part of me already knew. She led me to the living room, which was scattered with wedding photos they'd been sorting through. The irony wasn't lost on me. Images of their perfect day spread across the coffee table while their marriage fell apart around them. "I found something," she said, sitting down heavily on the couch. "Actually, Melissa found something and told me about it." My stomach clenched. "What kind of something?" Rebecca picked up her phone and showed me a screenshot of a text conversation. The contact name just said V. "V, I keep thinking about what you said yesterday. Maybe you're right that we need more time to figure this out. Alex, I know it's confusing. It's confusing for me too. But I meant what I said about not being able to let go. V, this is so hard. I see your wedding photos on social media and I feel sick. Alex, please don't look at those. They just make everything more complicated." The timestamp showed the conversation had happened 3 days ago. "There are more," Rebecca said quietly. "Going back weeks, months even." She scrolled through additional screenshots Melissa had saved. Message after message between Alex and someone named V, filled with emotional conversations, discussions about their relationship, plans to meet. The timeline made it clear this had been going on throughout Alex's relationship with Rebecca, right through their engagement and into their marriage. "Rebecca," I started, but she held up her hand. "I know who V is," she said. "I'm not stupid. It's Victoria, isn't it? I could have lied. Should have, maybe. But looking at Rebecca's devastated face, I couldn't add deception to the pile of hurt my brother had already caused." "Yes," I said simply. She laughed, but there was no humor in it. "You know what the worst part is? I had this weird feeling something was off. Little things. The way he'd turn his phone face down when I was around, how he'd sometimes seem distracted when we were together. But I told myself I was being paranoid. How did Melissa get these screenshots? She saw him again yesterday at that same cafe. This time she decided to do something about it instead of just wondering. She waited until they left, then approached Victoria directly. I felt a chill. What did she say to her? She introduced herself as my sister and asked Victoria point-blank if she was still involved with Alex. Apparently, Victoria broke down and admitted everything. She showed Melissa the text messages because she felt so guilty about the situation. Rebecca stood up and walked to the window overlooking the tree-lined street. "Sophie, Victoria didn't even know Alex had gotten married until she saw the photos online. He'd been telling her he needed time to figure things out, and that he wasn't sure about his relationship with me. The full scope of Alex's deception was becoming clear, and it was worse than I'd imagined. He hadn't just been struggling with his feelings, he'd been actively lying to both women, keeping them in the dark about each other. "Where is Alex now?" I asked. "I don't know. He left this morning for a work meeting. I haven't confronted him yet because I wanted to talk to someone first, someone who knows him." She turned back to me, tears streaming down her face. "Tell me honestly, do you think there's any part of this marriage that was real for him?" The question broke my heart. I thought about my conversation with Alex at the cafe, about the guilt and confusion in his voice. He did care about Rebecca. I believe that, but he'd been running from his feelings for Victoria instead of dealing with them. "I think Alex cares about you deeply," I said carefully. "But I also think he's been running scared from his own emotions, and in the process, he's hurt everyone he claims to love." Rebecca nodded slowly. "Melissa wants me to leave him immediately. She's furious. She says I should file for an annulment and cut my losses." "What do you want to do?" "I want to understand how the man I married could do this. I want to know if there's anything left to salvage, or if our entire relationship was built on lies." She wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. "Will you talk to him?" "Before I do, Rebecca, I already tried. A couple weeks ago." Her eyes widened. "You knew." I told her about Melissa's observations at the wedding, about my conversation with Alex at the cafe. As I spoke, I watched her face cycle through surprise, hurt, and finally, a kind of grim understanding. "So everyone knew except me," she said when I finished. "We suspected. We didn't know for sure until now. But you didn't tell me. We wanted to be sure before we said anything. And honestly, I hoped Alex would do the right thing and tell you himself." Rebecca was quiet for a long time. Finally, she said, "I need to see Victoria." "Rebecca, I don't think that's a good idea." "Why?" "She's the other woman in my marriage. Don't I have the right to understand what's been happening?" Before I could answer, we heard Alex's key in the door. Rebecca and I looked at each other, and I saw her face transform. The hurt was still there, but it was joined by something else, determination. "Don't say anything yet," she whispered to me. "Let me handle this." Alex walked into the apartment, carrying takeout from their favorite Thai restaurant, a peace-offering smile on his face. "Hey, babe." "Sophie." What a nice surprise. He had no idea that his world was about to collapse. "We need to talk," Rebecca said, her voice steady and calm. The smile faded from Alex's face as he took in the scattered wedding photos, Rebecca's tear-stained cheeks, and my tense posture on the couch. "Okay," he said slowly, setting down the food. "What about?" Rebecca picked up her phone and showed him the screenshots. "About Victoria," she said. "About the fact that you've been lying to me for months. About the fact that our marriage is apparently a sham." I watched my brother's face crumble as the reality of the situation hit him. The lies, the deception, the carefully constructed life he'd been trying to maintain, it was all falling apart in the living room of the apartment he shared with his wife of 2 weeks. The reckoning had finally come,